All right, what is going on, everybody? It is Ron from the Young Melanated Council. As I do everything to get my life together, bam, here we go. So yeah, still no camera, but that's okay. Still no camera, but that's a okay. We typically go live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and wherever else you're at in the world, that's where you can catch us. As always, please like, subscribe, enjoy the show, leave a comment. We love to see your comments. We love for you to be engaged throughout the chat in any way, shape, or form. And so, just come by, kick it, hang out with us for a little bit, and we'll get out your hair. We will try to get out your hair. I know tonight I'm gonna call it earlier. Tonight we may not be on for a whole while, but that's okay. Just we got some things going on, and we want to try respectful of people's time and so whatnot. So if we don't go long as normal, it's okay. It's okay. Just the simple fact of the matter that we're still going live, we're still going strong, and we still want to see your faces in the chat. Hey, what's going on, Gil? What's happening, homie? What's happening? You may not see me, but I got my coffee. Mm. I got my coffee with me just so I can stay up and alert and active throughout this whole session that we're going to be talking and whatnot. A few housekeeping things as well. Of course, we want to know everybody's weekend. I'm going to type that in the chat. You know, yes, 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 I am. And the crazy thing about it is, Chad, like I can drink a cup of coffee like right now, and I will probably still go to bed roughly around about my normal time. But even then, like my great grandparents before they passed, especially my great grandfather before he passed, he would drink coffee like it was nobody's business. Like first thing in the morning, he would make a pot of coffee and he would drink the whole pot throughout the whole day. And then let's see what else happened. And then he would mess around and ask either my mom or somebody else, "Hey, go ahead and make another pot of coffee." And they have another pot of coffee and all right, we got some congratulations going on. Oh, nice. I think I'm just now catching that. Nice. Congratulations. 11 year. Woo woo. We celebrate those. We celebrate those. Yes. We celebrate those. Yes. And so, like I say, he that's all he did was drink. He drink coffee. He drunk coffee, chewed tobacco, and that's what he did. Of course, he sat down, watched TV, had a conversation with him. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Oh, you're welcome. And so it was just his normal thing. And have as I grew up from when he was alive and when he passed, and especially with me working third shift and drinking coffee to stay up. That's what I did. I mean, even my dad to this day, he'll still drink like a cup of coffee and he'll drink it black with sugar, and that's it. Me, I just drink mine straight black, no cream, no sugar, and I would still go to bed as if I haven't drunk coffee at all. So that's just me. That's just me in my coffee intake. But other than that, yeah, I love drinking coffee. I love drinking coffee. But to be even in like the coffee I got right now, this the breakfast blend. So it's kind of like light in taste, not light in taste. It's not necessarily going to keep me up, keep me wired, and I did that on purpose because if I knew if I drunk Colombian, If I drunk my, because I got a Colombian coffee as well. If I did that one, more than likely I will probably be up for an extra 2 hours. That's the one's going to get me wired. I'll be up for an extra 2 hours. I'm like, nah, I'm not trying to do that. Not trying to do that. So just keeping it light, keeping it mellow, and everything else. Let's see. The weekend went by quick. Went by super quick. So if you guys haven't had a chance to answer the question, boom, how was everyone's weekend? And again, like I said, I don't know, on my end, weekend went by super quick. There was a new gun range that opened up within my area about an hour away, about four. It's about 55 minutes away. It's about an hour away. I took my youngest with me, and so a he got a hat, and the rep that was there. Oh, you had a birthday? Well, happy birthday, Chad. Happy birthday to you, sir. Happy birthday to you, sir. Again, we celebrate birthdays too. Anything that is great, a great accomplishment, we celebrate those here. Yeah, so happy birthday to you. So, we went down to city in Indiana called Mishawaka, and there was a new gun range that opened up. And even then, it's partnered with a group that I belong to. And the guy who was there to kind of like sign people up. Yeah, what weekend? I'm telling you, Rocky, like again, the way how my weekend flew by, that's how I'm feeling like, man, that weekend went by too quick. But it was still good. It was still good. It was still good. So the two oldest, my oldest son, my oldest daughter, they went out the house. They spent the night at other people's houses, and so I had my youngest. I'm like, you know what? Might as well take him somewhere and everything else. And so, he was a little bummed out at first, but we, um, when he started waking up, started talking, and yes, Rocky started talking and whatnot, the one rep that was there, he was actually the same person who taught the first half of my CPL class. Yes. Oh, come on. We're not doing this today. We are not doing this today. Why are we doing this today? Anyways, I don't know why it's not popping up. But yes, happy hero origin story day. There we go. All right, I'm back. I am back and whatnot. So again, pick up where I left off. So the rep who taught the first half of my CPL class, he was there. So me and him had a good conversation. It was good to catch up with him, see how he was doing and everything else. And so my youngest, we were walking around the gun store, and he was like, "Ooh, Dad, you should pick this one up. Ooh, Dad, you should try this one. Ooh, Dad, what about that one? Ooh, Dad, what about that one? Hey, what about this one? Hey, what about that one?" And so it was cool because the guy who was pretty much like showing us around and whatnot, he actually allowed him to hold one. There was one revolver that was a 50 cal, and he basically said like, yeah, that's the kind of revolver you're going to need in bear country. it's going to be the one that's going to put down a bear. And so I'm like, ooh, yeah. And so my son, he was like, hey, can I hold him? And looked at him like, is it okay? He's like, as long as it's okay with you. I'm like, okay. So he held it in his hand. He said, now I feel like a real human being. I'm like, what made you think that you're not a real human being? And so the dude behind the counter started laughing. And so we went on to the other side of the store, and we were talking about, little bolt action rifles, single fire, like hunting rifles, that kind of a thing. And so my son, he was like, hey, I got a question. Do you have any hunting? Do you have any rifles for like kids? It's like, oh yeah, we do. He's like, come here. So we went over there. He said, yeah. He said, this one. He said, this is like a kid's first, a kid's starter rifle. It was like, it's basically plain simple. It just shoots to 22. And all you gotta do is, he said, you pretty much, you load it in. So it's a single fire. So you have to manually load one in. Well, actually, take that back. You have to pull the hammer back, load it in, lock it in place, pull back the actual firing pin. Then you have to pull. Then you pull the trigger. If you don't pull back the firing pin, it's not going to go anywhere. And so once you shoot, it's go pink. Then you lift it up. You do pretty much like a bolt action, but it's just only a single fire. So it was like, okay, cool, great. So saw that for him, and he got all excited. He's like, man, he's like, he said, I'll be nice. He's like, Dad, do you have enough money to get that? I'm like, dude, I don't even get paid yet. I don't get paid until like the following week. It's like, and even then, I don't even know if I have enough for it. Dude was like, well, you just know it's still here for him. Like, yeah. So I'm like, man, this is gonna be nuts. So that's that. And yeah, that was pretty much my weekend. Sunday, of course, with the church, and came home, cooked dinner, and just chilled. And like I said before, you guys, weekend went by crazy quick. Went by crazy quick. So, without further ado, let me just double check to see if all things are good. You know, and again, like I said, we're going to try to. Okay, so coming to the stage, we got somebody special, and I know the one person that we would love to have won't be able to make with us tonight, but that's okay. But this next person that we got coming to the stage, you guys love this person, you adore this person, and this person is the grand champion as far as eating expired foods past the expiration date. This person has a steel stomach that, other than COVID, there is nothing else that could cause this person to become sick. And especially when it comes to like way expired bottles of alcohol, like, yeah, this person will go ahead and take it. This person was also known to have the Nancy Pelosi fridge way back when, and mentioned to say, person also is Mr. Steal Your Girl. Oh yeah, yep. It ain't King Book, but it's King T. So, without any further ado, allow me to reintroduce to some, to introduce to the few. And if you got your girls with y'all, you might as well hide your girls or hide your wives and all that other good stuff. Yeah, Gil. We're not saying that, we're not confirming or denying it was in that refrigerator, but it's a possibility they were kind of stuck in the freezer, the top shelf way back in the corner. You never know. Probably tucked away one of those corners in those coils. But again, y'all love them. You love them. You love them. You love them. Coming to the stage is the homie Toby. Hey, let's go, sir.
Oh yeah, no, I just I just saw I was muted. I was like, oh no. I was just like, hey, what is up? Good to be back after a week, quote unquote, off.
Mhm.
No, like there was a lot of things to address with that one. Um, the files in the fridge, Mr. Steel Girl.
Yeah,
Actually,
man.
the irony is that I literally because for those who don't know, because I didn't really publicly post this, but I will. Like in the Discord, I didn't really publicly. I've talked about it though. It's not really a surprise to most people who've been following the stream, but I moved. I left Boston last week, Sunday.
Mm,
It was really like 1 a.m. Like I'm talking about there was no sleep besides like a nap in the early afternoon, like 3, 4,
mm,
5 p.m. ish. Well, I remember waking up around 5, so it couldn't have been more than a few hours of sleep, or like 2 hours. And then I didn't really sleep that night before either. I had slept sometime during Saturday during the day, like April the 28th. And so I basically pulled after like not sleeping Friday night. Nope. Yeah. Let me see. I didn't sleep Friday night. I didn't sleep Saturday night. And I didn't sleep Sunday night. But I slept like during the daytimes of a lot of those days, though not very well. And then I ended up driving with my dad, but I did the drive-in, so it was basically 8 hours going from Boston area to Maryland. Stopped like maybe 4 times, but honestly, like I probably could have driven all the way because I didn't stop to sleep. It was mostly just breaks, making sure we're both good. Um, So yeah, that was fun. We got to Maryland like 9 something a.m. It was the best time though. It was the best time like to leave because if I had left even like around 4 or 5, I would have gotten caught in so much traffic around Connecticut, around New York City. But by the time I got to New York City, it was like what? Not like barely 5 a.m. Barely 5 a.m. And so that
mhm,
was a great time to be driving through that direction, particularly. Um, because we were basically going through New York City, then through Jersey, and that was fine. Like the other direction, going north of Jersey, yeah, it might have been a problem because people are going to the city. But at that point, we were leaving New York. But then it got nasty around Baltimore because that time was like 8 something a.m. And then it was like, oh god, we're really dealing with people who actually are going to work at this time. But at least we didn't get stuck in the middle. That would have been aggravating. But no, I did not
mhm.
move to Florida. Oh my gosh, can you imagine the drive? Holy crap. Holy crap. Can you imagine? I mean, Florida's so big. Even if I was there, I can't say that I was in your hood. I have a good friend of mine, two good friends, actually. And they're both people who I guess I've not always kept in touch with. But one of my friends, um, a coworker actually, we hadn't been in touch as much, but she's from Florida. So I saw her today for the first time legitimately in a year. Like I saw her last year. I took a trip to Maryland on President's Day weekend, and we had been on a work project together. Like she's a black woman, she's an engineer too. We're both around the same age. We both had some things in similar, so we caught up. But when we met last year around President's Day, but we had met on the team that we were on like that year, like January or December, really, probably January around New Year's. So we had only known each other for like barely 2 months. We ended up meeting in person. We ended up going out that Friday. It was really fun. We just like went to like a restaurant in Northern Virginia, Tyson's Corner area. And then we kept in touch here and there, but then she was busy, I was busy. So then I kind of ran into her sort of on accident. I texted her, but I didn't expect to see her. So when she kind of walked past the room I was in, I was like, oh my God, no way. Like she walked right past, and I was like, is that her? Like 5 seconds later, she comes back around, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, no way. But the point of that little tangent is that she's from Florida. Like I want to say she hopped around between the North Panhandle. Oh, there goes wrong. But she hopped around the Panhandle. She went down to I want to say she went to Florida, like one of the universities in like oh yeah, it was like Central Florida, so that's Orlando. I wish I was here, but it's okay, Gil, you can hold it down. And then she lived in Tampa at some point. So like, and then my other friend, she's actually been on the chat a few times, like not so much recently, but maybe like even a year ago. She used to sometimes be um in the chat, and she was from Maryland, but we met in upstate New York when I was in grad school. She's also black, also like in does computer stuff. My friend Alexis, she sometimes would be on the chat, and so because I was like sent her the link, I feel like she was kind of pro Yang, at least in some ways, but like I found that out after the fact. And so she told me that she moved because I was like, hey, are you coming back to Maryland anytime soon? Because that's where she's from. But her family all moved to Florida. And so she told me she was like in the panhandle. And when I was like, I might be going to Miami this year for Afro Nation, which is end of May. If you don't know Afro Nation, it's like a big festival with a lot of African artists and parties and stuff. Oh, this thing disconnected. Please let this thing not. It was charging, then it disconnected. So we're gonna hope it's gonna charge and not freeze. Did it unplug? Okay, we're good. Anyway, the point is, when I mentioned it, my friend Alexis was like, "Yeah, that's like a 7-hour drive." I was like, "Dang." Honestly, I was like, "I was an hour. I could have been like." That I have a sister in Boston. I'm dead. Is this actually real? That is
Oh, yeah.
That's wild. Now, if she's a high school senior, if she's
wow.
graduating high school, that's already off the table. Let's just be very careful. If she's graduating college, listen.
Yes.
If she's graduating college, there's no, well, out of respect for you, of course, we're gonna be a gentleman. But if you're graduating college, there's no what was I gonna say? Nothing's off the table. But no, I get it. I swear to God, doctor. Oh, wait a second. Okay, now we actually have to talk offline because I was a PhD. I didn't get my PhD. I was in the PhD program in RPI in upstate New York. So I actually know like some black I know some black grad students, and like I have some friends who are in like the PhD program at MIT. I have a friend, I think I knew some people at the Harvard PhD program. I actually have a friend who's Northeastern in the PhD program, all of them black. So like even on like no like weird steal your girl stuff, I'm like, I actually like really wanted to get into the black academic scene. Interesting. I know there's so many Haitians also in Boston, and I know two people who went to the MCPHS. I think that's the school, the pharmacy school that's there. I know two people who graduated like last year around the same time. They were brother and sister. So it's actually funny because like there are different people I know who've graduated from medicine, or the pharmacy is very popular up here. Those two brother sisters are Nigerian, but it would be so funny like if I found out like we had mutual connections. Anyway, I feel like there's no way of saying that's not going to come across weird. But like if I saw the Instagram profile, not on any weird stuff, but I just sometimes would get fascinated. Like, wait a second, how small of a world is it? How many degrees of separation is there between my network and your sister's network? But I digress. Lest people think I'm out here macking and I'm trying to steal someone's sister, which I am not. But no, that's super dope. Congrats to her. I'm actually going to be graduating. Not graduating. My cousin is graduating from Tufts University end of the month, like the weekend of the 18th, which is not even 2 weeks from now. It's basically next week, Friday. I need to get my flight soon, but I'm going to be up in Boston that weekend. So no, like there's a lot of graduates from that area. There's a whole lot of people I have to wish love to. People I know who are going to get their PhD, if not this year, then beginning of next year. So in all serious, congrats to her. Congrats to all the people. My cousin, congrats to her. I'm gonna have to shout her out more properly after she fully walks. And yeah, I know it's gonna be a crazy graduation season everywhere, but especially Boston. I mean, there's so many universities in that area. It's crazy. So yeah. Summary is Florida. I'm dead. You said now that now that I've left Boston. That is wild. People have really painted this picture.
It is.
People have really painted this picture that no one is safe, and it's like, well, I mean, listen, Nick Cannon wants to be like, I'm dead. Space and time now that he knows.
Right.
Listen, they don't call me Toby for no reason. I got that space time ninjutsu. Just like your boy Obito, your boy Minato. So doesn't matter what dimension we are. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, you know?
Yep. There you go. Which coincidentally, it actually does like wrap it to today's topic for tonight. And if you guys don't know, now you know how to be safe in public. Now, there you go. There you go. And so basically what the idea was, and actually Toby, you can elaborate a little bit more, especially with half of the crap that's been going on here in the United States and probably all around the world. But the one thing that came up, and Toby, you can, like I said before, elaborate on this, is a lot of things that has gone wrong that probably shouldn't go wrong. And so, Toby, I'm going to pass the ball to you so you can go ahead and properly introduce this topic to the people.
Yes. Received. Received. Um so because we were kind of coming up like, this month we're talking a lot about politics and laws, right? Especially locally. So what's going on at the local level? There's honestly too many things that are less than fun to talk about. I mean, COVID was kind of like, okay, it's a little real time. Fine. Like it get kind of heated, but it's fine. Then you have things that are really personal, like abortion and some others. But it's like, you know what, with all these gun laws that are happening, gun, shootings, we just talked about the shootings. That was very recent. But now it's like, well, let's look at the laws. And so part of the public safety is, yes, on one hand, there's a lot of gun laws that have been passed, whether, people have made it easier to get guns or people are making it harder and kind of the mix of that. But also, there's other incidents like rest in peace to Jordan Neely in New York City, who the medical examiner said it was a homicide, even if the basically the killer, the guy who took Neely's life, even if he's not being treated as a criminal, the medical examiner said that Neely was indeed killed in a way that was homicide in some way. Like it has to be at least some version. And so that got me thinking, like, okay, we could talk about gun laws, but even more broadly, what about like laws that have been enacted for public safety? And something new that I didn't even think about was these mayor races, right? Chicago was the big one, where a progressive woman, Brandon Johnson, over the more quote unquote right wing guy, I forget his name, but the other one. And then Philly actually has a mayor race. I've been getting texts about it, probably because I was subscribed to some other candidates and they've been pushing like, other kind of more progressive people. And so I've been hearing of, I think Helen Jim. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the last name right, but I looked at her, I was like, she seems interesting. So I think I'm getting a little specific, but the general thing is that there's different kind of strides for public safety, whether it's more on the progressive side, whether it's more on the conservative side. Public safety is kind of all the rage. People are talking about it from gun laws to like mental health and how you kind of like help, I guess, make a place, it's very controversial, but talking about people who have like mental episodes or who are homeless and like in public areas like subways and streets, and how do you kind of, well, really, the primary concern should be providing for them. Why do they fall through the cracks? Why aren't people able to like, eat? Because literally, man was screaming, "I'm hungry." So why aren't people able to eat, have shelter, be able to be, safe? But then also, I guess there's people who feel unsafe by their presence, or in some cases, maybe they actually are having an episode, and people could get, hurt, and that is a real thing, right? You have to be careful because most people with mental illnesses are more likely to hurt themselves. That's just the truth. But at the same time, there are people who have valid concerns about like, well, what's going on here? What happens? And you don't want to have like interactions where they're getting killed by the police, because we've already seen that, like Daniel Prude. I think that was like Rochester, New York, right? So I didn't even plan for honestly some of these people, but I'm just thinking of them because I'm like, wow, okay, I'm just remembering this person and that person. And so there's a lot of instances where there are people who had episodes and they weren't safe. So it's not just about, oh, people don't feel safe because mentally ill on the streets and the trains, but they're not safe. And in this case, Neely wasn't safe from, I think 3 people held him down, and then the Marine put him in the chokehold, which is just absolutely ridiculous because, and it's just depressing sometimes to watch like comments and YouTube videos and things, because essentially people are like, oh, this is what happens when people, have to take matters into their own hands. But it's like, but there's no reason to get to the point of choking. And so, you know,
Right.
what laws could have, first of all, or that person can get charged. If they're not, well, okay, well, and then what laws, and help prevent things like this? Do people agree with Mayor Eric Adams and sort of his push, or because he did this some months ago, where it's like people basically have to be involuntarily committed if they're not willing to get committed to mental institutions. I think mental institutions and like homeless shelters. Um, and so is that the right thing to do? And I mean, even though that policy has been in effect, Neely clearly wasn't in there. And so, I wasn't even trying to do it, but like, what's going on here? Like, is this actually working? Is this making people safer? Is this making the people themselves who are supposed to be getting treatment safer? And so a lot of this is kind of around the laws towards public safety, both gun laws, but then also other laws and the kind of balance between our own, I guess, rights, maybe as free citizens. A lot of different rights that can be discussed. Rights to not be shot at in mass shootings because people are getting easier guns, but then there's also other things. So I'm going to kind of kick it to you. I did kind of cover a broad base of things, but honestly, this is an open discussion. And if anyone can other things involving public safety and local laws, local, state, even national, but the main thing is what kind of political and like public discussions are had about safety. But yes, Chad, the Philly primary. I need to follow that a little bit more. And to your last concept, can you elaborate a little bit more on this? I guess in terms, I'm guessing you're kind of saying like the response that was given to Neely was disproportionate, maybe, and that it was escalated instead of de-escalated. But I want to kind of make sure I understand from your perspective, what the point that you're trying to argue here is.
Well, because I when I'm reading Chad's message, it took me back to when I was going for my criminal justice degree. And the two teachers that I had, one was an ex-cop and a retired lawyer, and the other one was a retired detective. And so when it came to the concept of using lethal force and what are the steps needed to to say, like, hey, I'm going to use deadly force to get the situation squared away. They were saying that there were levels to it, and how you respond depends upon what level is needed. And so when we look at what happened to Jordan Neely, it was like, okay, if nobody hasn't necessarily been around anybody who has a mental episode, and if they're not putting you in actual danger, you should be okay. And even then, if the man is really has been doing nothing wrong and just having some random outbursts, okay, random outbursts, that's fine. My issue is when you become both judge and jury and you really don't know everything that surrounds why this certain individual is having an episode. It's like, what are you thinking? What are you worried about? Like, if he's not bothering anybody, if he hasn't caused any harm to anybody, why does that why does it give you a justifiable mean to take this person's life? And even then, going off of Chad's statement, chokeholds that last for 5 minutes or more lethal than chokeholds that last for at least one. You can infer intent You don't need to know intent to make that statement. Again, I can see that. I can definitely see that, and especially because of the fact that on one end of the spectrum, probably wanted just to kind of maybe knock them out. Okay, I get that. But when you get to the point where you're choking him out to the point where now he's like dead, that's a totally different ball game. Totally different ball game. Now it's like, okay, what were you thinking at the time? And so for people, like I said before, for people who are not aware or around individuals that are going through a mental episode, sure, it's scary, but if they're not causing you any harm, you'll be fine. I remember being on the city bus, and there was a couple kids on there. We all knew they had um, mental episodes. We all knew this, and every so often, one of them would just randomly yell on the bus, randomly. And at first it shook me to the core. I'm like, man, why is this person yelling on the bus? And it made me nervous, but I just kind of looked at him just to kind of see, like, okay, what is he doing? And if he wasn't doing anything to nobody, I'm like, okay, he's not doing anything. If the bus driver isn't necessarily going to kick him off the bus and whatnot, then I think we're going to be okay. And so what ended up happening is the bus driver pretty much had the guy just sit towards the front of the bus, so that way if he did have an episode, he could pretty much pull over, get the cops, and have the cops escort him off, and it was no big deal. So we're like, okay, cool, great, no big deal, we're fine. And even when me and my friend was living in Colorado Springs, of course, we got a bunch of people who normally ride the bus who are homeless, and so a lot of them, they tend to have their episodes. It was pretty much very common. Sad to say, but it was very common because they really didn't have anywhere to go. And the bus driver's like, hey, this is so and so. If so and so starts doing something, it's okay. I already know about it. I already talked to the authorities. They know about it. Everything's cool and under control. There's nothing that this person is going to do that's going to make you feel as though your life is in danger. I'm like, okay, cool, great, whatever. And so, even still, then I just kept the eye on the individual, just in case if anything happens to him or her. I can let the bus driver know, like, hey, bus driver, this is what's going on to so and so. You may need to pull over, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, I was always conscious and cautious around any individual who had a mental health disorder or disease or whatever the spectrum is. We wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, that person is good, that person's taken care of. And if we needed to get medical assistance, or if we needed police assistance, that they could do what was needed and make sure the person got the right help. That was all. That's all. But all this other mess that's been going on or that happened in New York, that was totally uncalled for. That was totally uncalled for. And especially, and again, if if the individual was screaming out, hey, I just need food. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. If anybody has like a leftover sandwich, give it to the man. That was it. Or like water, probably didn't care. Just wanted something to drink, something to eat. Be on his merry way. But to take his life, yeah, nah. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. But even then, it just circles back to a lot of the shootings that has been taking place, and especially when it's like there wasn't any harm done for the person to shoot. Again, going back to that conversation, it just lets me know that a lot of our safety issues need work, and to constantly almost be in a state of fear, not necessarily for other people, but just for yourself, it's kind of nerve wracking. Very much nerve wracking. Very much nerve wracking. And so I do believe that if anyone is able and capable, oh yeah, true. And again,
Hmm. Yeah, I actually don't know if I've heard cases of homeless people who like if anything, I mean, what's gonna happen? Even like a knife, like is that really happening? It's usually like I don't know if there's other objects that they have that they could they're be fighting with. Most people are just there. They're just there. They're asking for something. They're asking. I mean, even if they are like let's say on drugs, like they're maybe asking for money. I haven't personally heard of a case where a homeless person legitimately has a weapon and is terrorizing people with it. Like sometimes maybe people have mentioned something about a knife or a sharp object, but I don't
right.
really hear that. I don't really see that. You know, I don't know. And Gil, you're saying what's anxiety inducing? Is it the like that something like that could happen to anyone, or even like just the seeing that kind of in scenario play out in real time is anxiety inducing? I know a lot of the conversation is moving kind of fast, so I'm trying to make sure I pick up on everything. But oh yeah, yeah. Honestly, I mean, and I don't know. I feel like coverage of this stuff always sucks because it's just like I mean, in some hands, yeah, you're probably going to see much more of like the activist perspective, where and there's people who talk about his background as a Michael Jackson impersonator and how he was beloved in the community. But then on the other hand, there's like almost no empathy from like other sources, especially people who I guess are just sick of like I guess feeling like that there's no order, like oh, there's police have to pull back because whatever. I mean, the reality is that police have always gotten more funding. That's always been a thing, right? So it's not like literally they're getting defunded, but maybe there's people who feel like, oh, culturally they have to pull back. There's a lot of resignations. And what do you think is going to happen when there's no police? People are going to take matters in their own hand, and there's no empathy for the man. Oh, and then you pull out his record. Apparently, he was arrested like 40 something times for like some disorderly conduct. But people with mental, first of all, homeless people get arrested all the time. People with mental episodes get arrested, and so there's already a lot of caveats to that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's already a lot of caveats to that. And in that moment, eyewitnesses were saying that he wasn't being violent. He actually hadn't lunged towards anyone. He hadn't attacked anyone. So it was even weird that like he was pinned down the way he was. But it just takes one person to be like seen as a threat, and then boom. Because that was civilians. This wasn't the case like Eric Garner. And this is the first time I've thought of that comparison where he was pinned down, of course, by a lot of cops just because he kind of refused to. He was selling loose cigarettes and he was kind of being detained, or he was being told something and he just told them like get off of me, and he wasn't pushing towards them. He just literally was like get off, and then they shut him down. They shut him down or whatever. But a case like this is like you don't even need it to be police. You don't even need to be like having some kind of confrontation where something went wrong in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It can just happen because people decided that they're the keeper of the night. They want to be Batman or whatever.
Right.
And so yeah.
No, it's just crazy. It's crazy. But then again, it does remind me of my CPL class and what I learned. And a lot of times what people and especially if they already have their CPLs or their CCWs, depending upon what state you live in. But for a lot of people, they fail to fully assess the scenario and the situation. I mean, granted, yes, when I got my CPL, I was told you only have about really like 5 seconds to make a decision based upon the information that's given to you. I know 5 seconds is not a lot,
Mm,
but if you count five, if you pretty much like count 5 steps from you and the other individual, and depending upon what this individual is doing that you perceive as dangerous, which is a whole nother spinoff to this, what you perceive as dangerous. Now it's like, okay, one again, option one, do I have enough time to actually run away and flee? Do I have enough exits available to me where I can escape danger safely? That's number one. Number two is, okay, if I can't escape safely, or there's no exit routes. Number two, then what can I do to kind of de-escalate the situation to the point where I can go away safely and the individual can go away safely? Option three, if those first two options are out the window and I can't do it, can I defend myself without using my firearm? Or again, do I go down to option four and be like, okay, use my firearm and let the person know I'm about to use my firearm to take you out? That's the end of the story. In
mm,
this situation, again, we don't necessarily know what steps were taking place. Only thing we know is, again, totally like you said before, we got two people pinned down one guy, and then the third one choked them out. So it's
mm,
like, okay, did anybody fully assess the situation? Did anybody fully figure out, like, okay, even though yes, we may not be able to get off the subway train because it's moving, is there anything that could have been done to go ahead and just de-escalate the situation? And I don't know, like calm the dude down, whatever the case may be, rather than go 0 to 60 and be like, okay, we're gonna take this person's life. And
mm.
even then, Toby, like you were saying before, like reading the comments, like I don't even want to read the comments. I don't
Good choice.
because the way how I had to rewire my brain, and especially when it came to me taking my CPL class, I
Mm,
have to look at things very differently. I have to. I have to look at things in a way where, like, okay, I need to one preserve my life as much as possible, but
mm,
also at the same time, for those individuals who are surrounded by me, who are connected to me, I have to make sure that they're protected as well.
yeah.
And even then, I always have to keep in mind that whenever I do use lethal force, that I'm going to be looked at and scrutinized in the
Mm,
worst way possible. And I have to give an absolute credible statement defending why I had to use lethal force.
mm,
I have to. I remember my my last instructor was a retired police chief out of Battle Creek, Michigan, and he told me a case that he was pretty much a part of. He was saying, like, that you know dude tried to kill guy in his house. He went to trial, and the attorney, was asking questions. He asked one more question. He said, so it's like, question. It's like, if the person was leaving, you shot the person in the back, like, why? What was the reason for you to shoot the person in the back? The dude said, well, I would have let him go and would have been fine. But because of the fact he ran in the direction to where my daughter was sleeping at,
mm,
I don't know what he would have done if he found out she was in there sleeping. So I shot him in the back to keep him from reaching my daughter. mind you, a lot of people who were in the jury box just so happened to be parents. And he said, no further questions. Because again, if it was you, your child is sleeping, and you had an intruder come inside your house, and you're like, okay, they're leaving, but they're going in the direction where your children are sleeping at, would you take them out? So it's like, yeah, yeah, but did the same thing too. Like if you would have ran out the front door, fine. Ran out the back door, don't care. But you ran towards the area where my child or children are sleeping at, and I got to take you out because I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what you're capable of doing, and I don't want to risk that chance. And let's see.
Yeah, that's a really scary thought. And then you really just have
Yeah,
to do what you think that is the best. And because I'm guessing like the whole point of this is the guy died, right? That he shot in the back,
yeah, yeah.
or
Oh
did
yeah.
he not even? Yeah, yeah. Because that's the thing. That's why it's like, okay, now you only have your side of the story, and you really have to keep yourself from going to jail for murder, or manslaughter or whatever. No, that's tough.
Right. Right, because even then, what Roger was saying, the trickiest part is that you can't really say the death was an accident, was accidental, because it required premeditation. That's exactly right. Because even then, we'll swing this back to the subway the incident on the subway. It's like, okay, you really can't say it was an accident because and again, just reading the article about it, the chokehold that you placed him in. And again, because you are a veteran, you are trained to learn how to take out people the most efficient way possible, especially if you're not trying to draw attention to yourself. That's what you were taught to do. And so if you went beyond the fact of you trying to de-escalate the situation by knocking them out by going and killing them, like, yeah, that can't be accidental. That's not accidental. Like you meant to do what you did. Like I can't support that one. I can't. I
Mm.
can't. I can't. That's something I cannot support. It's like, no, no, no. But again, that's just me. That's just me. And again, like I said, I think things differently now than what I did prior to me getting my CPO. And even
Mm.
then, I tell people all the time, like, listen, now that I got my CPO, like, I really can't get in trouble. I can't. I really cannot get it. I can't get in any kind of trouble.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, it's tough. Like being that's the whole thing about the response
Yes.
part. Oh yeah, it's this. Can't really accident choke. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh, right. Yeah. Especially when it's like clearly from that many minutes. Like it wasn't like you somehow accidentally snapped someone's neck, or there was some erratic motion, or like there are other things maybe where something could happen and me, but like, or even like being like pressing down on someone maybe causes a heart attack. Like, there are things where it's like, okay, you can kind of see some wiggle room in the way that it's like, oh, I didn't mean for the person to die, or even a taser, right? Let's say that you have taser, pepper spray, something on you, and it has a bad reaction,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could say, well, that wasn't meant to happen, and that's more credible. So it really depends on the case, right? Even with shooting, like it's of course absurd when like you have so many shots, especially from like a lot of officers when someone's unarmed and like walking away. It's like that didn't need to happen. But there is a moment where like when you're shooting, you kind of keep shooting, right? Like something in the brain
Mm-hmm.
where it's like it can be hard to stop until you really know that your target is done for. And I mean that's like terrible regardless, but it's like okay, at least that's a little more credible that it like you emptied the clip, or at least you like shot multiple times because of like the fear and the adrenaline, and you want to make sure
Mm.
whatever. But you know, either way, like that what I was about to say was that responsible part is the tricky thing. Like how do you be a responsible gun owner and you're still human, right? With all of the judgment calls that you have to make. Um though the
Mm-hmm.
judgment calls that were made over the last few weeks, don't do those. Don't shoot people through your glass door. Don't shoot people backing out of the wrong driveway. Don't shoot people who. I mean, if someone like gets to your car and you think you're being carjacked, like you have to use some common sense. Like clearly,
Mm-hmm.
if they walk away from the
Mm-hmm.
car and they're going back to their own car, you don't chase them out and shoot them. That's not what you do.
Correct.
So there's common sense, responsible ways, even if you think an incident's going to happen or is happening. Because I know, like, I was in Boston some weeks ago. I probably had to be like a month ago now, and there was some girls who just like were like waltzed into my car and like tried to open. And I don't remember, like the doors might have actually been locked anyway because the kind of auto locking. And depending on which door if you unlock the driver's door, only that door unlocks. If you unlock the passenger door, because sometimes you might put a bag into the passenger's door, then I think it unlocks all the doors. So I can't remember which case it was, but I know someone tried to open the back door. It was like these two girls. And I was just like, what? It might have opened because I was just like, what's happening? I was just like, seems like what's happening. And then they just closed it. I was just like, I'm not. I mean, I didn't really get to say have a conversation of like, I'm not Uber or whatever. They didn't really apologize. They just like, closed the door or they walked away. But like, the first thought wasn't, oh my gosh, my life's in danger. It was just like, what are you guys doing?
Right.
So I don't know. Like, public safety, doesn't mean turn into I don't know the Punisher or whatever.
True. 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 But even then, I think I think what needs to happen more is really the fact of the matter. Like we all need to just slow down and really just think things through. And I think that with critical thinking skills and critical thinking classes not being taught in elementary, middle school, and high school levels, it tells people like you have to think fast 24/7 7 days a week. You always need to be on the go 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 go, and if you're not, you're going to miss something. And it's like, well wait, it's okay to slow down, it's okay to pause, so it's okay to take several seats and actually reevaluate yourself. It's okay to just kind of look at things differently and look at things from different angles because you're going to miss something. And as of right now, the route how this country is going is it's going down that route where too many people are making careless mistakes. I won't even call them mistakes. They're just being careless. Too many people are being careless,
Mm-hmm.
and even then, they're not being held accountable for their decision making. They're not, and it's almost as if, oh, we're going to slap you on the wrist. Oh, you're going to get away clean. It's like, no, that's not right. That's not right at all, because if the tables were turned, there would be numerous of people trying to throw so and so underneath the jail.
Mm.
No, 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 not happening, not happening. And again, a lot of people need to be held accountable for their decision making, and even then, pretty much grill them like, okay, so why, how come you couldn't do things differently? If you were to do things differently, do you think you would be in this much hot water? And actually get people to process thinking and the process a lot of different scenarios. And again, I try to teach my kids the same thing. Like, listen, you know, you guys have to learn how to think. You guys have to learn how to, yes, agree. I'm seeing that now. I'm seeing that. And even then, like I was saying before, teach my kids, like, hey, you're going to be accountable for every action and every decision that you make. And depending upon what you do, it's going to stick with you until your adulthood, unless you figure out how to nip it now and prepare yourself in a way where once you do become grown, you do become an adult, that you don't keep making the same silly mistakes. Oh, don't worry, I got what you meant. I got what you meant, Rocky. I know
Yeah,
what you meant.
same.
But again, that accountability piece is it's not sticking. And
Mhm.
even then, because I'm working in the school system, a lot of times I have these kids who come up to me and we're talking, and so I try to teach them then, listen, you got to be. I'm gonna hold you accountable because you're the one who made the decision. You're the one who said this, and the third, and you're not being nice. You're not being a good friend. You're not being a good classmate. Like, why in the world should this person continue to play with you if you keep making this person feel bad? Like, well, like you continue to do it. It's like that's not cool. How would you feel if this person were to treat you the same way how you're treating them? You'll feel bad, right? Right. So why do it? I don't know. Like, I'm gonna need you to reevaluate. Like, matter of fact, here's what I'm gonna do. Listen, don't worry about playing with your friend. Like, give your friend a break. Try it again tomorrow. I'm gonna need you to kind of take several seats and then actually just sit there and think about your decision making because it's not cool. Yes, Chad. Yes, I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. And I think the one thing that there we go. I think the one thing that pretty much comes to my mind is the fact of the matter, it starts off at home. If we don't teach it at home, we can't expect the schools to teach it there because they don't have time to teach it or they won't be able to teach it. But at the same time, we can't get mad if society teaches our kids what it means, what it looks like not to be accountable, to shift the blame up to somebody else. I mean, we see it in Congress all the time. We see it in major corporations all the time. We see it in TV. We see it on the movies. We see it in the video games. Like we see it a lot. We see it a lot. Yes, I agree. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. You know, and even then it's like letting my kids know, like, listen, your dad made some mistakes in life and there are some mistakes that I'm kind of paying the repercussions for because of the fact that I'm holding myself accountable. And now I'm suffering through those consequences of those bad decisions that I made. Learn from my mistakes, learn from your mom mistakes. Don't make those same bad decisions, but rather make good, firm, solid decisions and have a good, solid foundation to base those decisions off of to the point where you don't have to, no one necessarily say suffer, but you won't necessarily have to go through the similar consequences that me and your mom are going through. You don't have to. And again, I was telling my oldest the other day, like, listen, you're at a space where yes, we get it. You're about to be grown. You're 16. You're 2 more years. You're going to be 18. You're going to be a grown adult. You're going to be a grown man. There's not a whole lot I could teach you after that. I mean, sure, I may give you some little nuggets here and there, but at the end of the day, you're going to be grown. You're going to be making your own decisions. And whatever your decisions you make as a grown man, you're going to have to go through those consequences, whether they're good consequences or whether they're bad consequences. You're going to have to go through them. So rather than make silly decisions as an adult and have to pay major consequences, go ahead, make those decisions now as a kid where the consequences are not going to be as harsh, but you still have the room to learn, to grow, to do better. So that way you can learn. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again. It's going to get you nowhere. And so he was like, okay, like I get it. I get it. I was like, as long as you get it, I really don't care. But what I do care is the fact that you make the right decisions and realizing that the decisions that you make is going to set up what you're going to do as an adult. Whether they're good decisions, whether they're bad decisions, they're going to set you up what's going to happen once you become an adult, and especially after you graduate high school. Like that's when a lot of things are going to are going to happen. And so, there's been times I had to pull them aside, have those father son talks, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not as good. But again, I told him like, listen, the same conversation me you're having right now, when you have your own kids, if you decide to have kids, you're gonna have to have these similar talks, these similar conversations, because it's going to be, especially that your child is going down the wrong road. You probably want to pull them quicker than anything else, so you don't have to keep making those, or your child does have to keep making those same decisions. Like you pull them out, and so you know it works. I see the change. It's little by little, but it's okay. I'll take little progress over no progress. And so, with all of that being said, when it comes to being safe and let's see, agree. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. And even then, just to kind of push on further, because of the fact that they to try best to understand others, it's another thing. Which actually, thank you, Chad. It's going to this next segment of the same is the fact of the matter. In order for us, is how to be safe in the public arena, public sectors, like understanding what a person is going through, understanding that they may not have it together. Everybody is different. Everybody is different backgrounds, different communities. Like it's different. Okay to be different, and because everything is supposed to be different, we should celebrate those differences. Now, being disagree, I agree.
Oh, I think you're breaking up a little bit. Went a little metallic there. I mean, I heard mostly what you're saying about making good decisions, but last 10 seconds were a little
choppy.
Okay, well, I hear you clear now.
No,
Oh, okay, maybe. Okay.
To break those.
No, it's definitely no, it's definitely Yeah, it's like a twice. It'll go like pause, and then it'll go pause, and I'm like hoping it's not my end because I mean I think my Wi-Fi is. Granted, this is the first time I've connected to this Wi-Fi before with this computer. I was telling Ron this before I came on, but I've not connected. Like this computer honestly was in my in the box like that I shipped that I carried it in. And I just never took out my personal computer since then. But I don't think the Wi-Fi is acting up. So, but I'll let you know if it acts weird again. Sorry. Continue your thoughts. Oh, now I definitely think you froze. Either that, unless you're just not saying anything. But the icon even doesn't look like it's pulsing the way it would with background noise. Oh, well, so I'm not sure if you're hearing me, Ron, at all. I don't know if y'all hear Ron actually. Actually, in the chat, can y'all confirm? Can you hear Ron like regularly? Is this like me, or is it dead silent for all of you? And can you guys actually hear me? That's an important thing to make sure it's coming kind of clear on my end. Oh, and Ron's gone. So I think I don't know. I just want to double check because yeah. So I see that, Rocky, what you said, but can you actually like hear me? And can you guys actually is everything like clear coming out? Because if not, I haven't seen anyone in the chat say anything. So I have a feeling my end is also acting strange, which is not good. That means I'm gonna have to do some strange troubleshooting. Yeah, I'm gonna comment.
You're good.
Can you hear me, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me because I can't see if anyone else can also hear me. But if you hear me, then I think everyone should. Kimberly W. Hi.
Hey. Hey.
I'm guessing that's in front of yours. Actually, hold on. Let me make sure that I didn't just like this on someone I know. Well, that's going on. What's going on? Sorry to see you're going through it, Ron. I've been there before, so I'm like, I know how it is. I know how it is and how tough it can be. Oh, what was that? Strange file on my computer almost. Oh, that was another tab. Strange.
Yeah. No, what I was saying was I know that my city as of right now, a lot of the internet services has been messing up since last week actually. And so I know
Oh shoot.
okay, I'm back.
Okay.
I know that there's a company doing fiber optics around the city, which is messing up with a lot of people's internet connection. And it sucks that they're deciding to do everything now. So I was like, yeah, this is going to be a huge struggle. Huge struggle. So y'all just bear with me. That's all I'm asking. Just bear with me. So anyways, and again, to going back to how to be safe in the public, I think the one thing is understanding and excuse me, and it just actually just looking at things differently. And just be aware. Oh yes, 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 yes. Be aware. Awareness is everything, especially situational awareness. Situational awareness is everything. And this is what I mean by situational awareness means everything. A lot of times whenever I walk, whenever I drive, whether I'm in the grocery store, driving down the street, I know a lot of times I tend to look around my surroundings, especially as I'm driving. When I got my driver's license, or not necessarily got my driver's license, but when I was taking my driver's training class, my driver's training instructor always told us to consistently keep your head on a swivel. Consistently. And not just to kind of look in one direction for too long, but you need to make sure that you kind of have like a 180 view of what's going on around you. And if you could make it 360, that's even better. Always be aware of your surroundings and always be aware of what's going on outside of your bubble. So at least that way you have a chance to react. And this also was something similar that I was taught in my CPL class was to always be a 360 bobblehead. Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, Kim, for the most part, yes. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And again, I will say that I am that 360 bobblehead. Like, if you see me walking through the store, normally I'm always looking around, seeing what everybody is doing. Not because I'm trying to be nosy, but because I want to take into account everything that's going on. And even then, there may be, oh man, yep, I'll take it.
Oh man.
I will take it. And even then, there's a bunch of kids that I see at the school that I work with. You know, it's common that a lot of them will say, "Hey, how you doing?" And even then, there's a few who would break away from their parents and they would run and hug me. And I feel like, hey, it's okay. I know them. I work at their school. I'm so and so. I'm Mr. Marzed. They know me. I know your kids, so it's okay. Like, oh, okay. And they kind of laugh it off, but they kind of get that nervous laugh. Like, why is this? Why is my child just randomly hugging this strange man? And I just introduced myself to him. They're like, oh, okay. And it's funny that when they see me at the school, like, oh, didn't we not see you at so and so? Like, yeah, that was me. This is what I normally do. This is where I'm at. And so if your kids talk about chasing somebody around the playground, it's normally me. It's normally going to be me. Or if they just ran hug me,
Oh, what happens if they just randomly decide to hug? They see you and randomly decide to hug? You're talking about your kids, by the way, because I realized I lost a little context. If you're talking about your biological kids, or if you're talking about like you as working in the school system. Dang. And now the questions in the chat, and I'm like, I can't answer these questions. I'm not Ron. And Ron is frozen. He is frozen. Like we in the Incredibles. Dang, I don't even know how to like transition from that. But I guess we're gonna try. Well, I still want Ron to still finish the story, but I will. One thing that I thought of, it is definitely a little bit different. Okay, you're back, Ron. I was gonna say something about like actual laws because I know like we talked about politics and like kind of policy
mm-hmm.
and COVID last week, right? I wasn't on the stream because moving woes, which again I didn't really get to like publicize that much on the Discord, but y'all can imagine how that goes when you do move in out of state, drive in, and all that other stuff. So I was thinking the one thing was like all these different laws that were coming up, but definitely finish
Mm-hmm.
the thread that you were on. But I think it would be interesting to look at some gun laws and other kind of public safety measures that I've seen passed in different points. Some very recent as like this week, some as in like the last few months, even last maybe year. But finish your thought before we kind of like scrap over that because I wasn't in a rush to like get you off, but I was like, oh crap, if you're gonna,
No,
if the powers that be decide to kick you off, I was like, well, I don't know how to transition from that.
no, I would say go ahead, Toby. Go ahead because it would be a nice little segue, and especially if the powers that be decide to kick me off because I might be talking something, but go for it.
All right, cool. Oh yeah, and from the chat too, like so okay, the 360 bobblehead, I'm guessing that's kind of talking about like having to look every way, kind of keeping yourself late at night and just in general. And I can
Right.
definitely understand that perspective of being aware. Like even for me, I kind of am like maybe a little paranoid because there was a point where I was binge watching Criminal Minds. I just finished like last month, like early to mid last month, and that's 16 seasons. So the fact that I like started that show July, no, it was May 2021. It was like end of May. So it wasn't barely even 2 years, not even 2 years. And I already got to like end of it. It's kind of a problem. But it was a good show. But I mean, people have their opinions about this type of shows. You're glorifying the FBI, and some people are not with that. Some people don't want to glorify serial killers, whatever. Um, but it did make me a little more paranoid at times, and I'm like, how do people get abducted? Like, where are the entry points? What are like sometimes I really will be doing like full checks like around my car, checking whatever. And so I can imagine for women it's even more like checking every kind of
Yes.
thing that could be happening. And I see those like chain mail type things. Like now it's WhatsApp, no one does chain emails anymore. It actually was first like Facebook, right? It was chain mail, and then it was like Facebook posts that were kind of these viral posts about like be careful that you don't like get tricked by like I don't know someone putting something on your car. You check it and then they hit you in the head, or if someone has a gun in your car. You see this type of chain emails. Then they came Facebook posts, now they're WhatsApp messages. So, but there is truth to some of it, and there are things that you have to look out for, especially as women. Now, for you, Rocky, are you saying safe as in like the general topic that we're delving into, or like the laws that I'm mentioning that that people have passed to attempt to be safe? Because this is mostly talking about physical kind of safety. Cyber safety is a big important thing. Like I think public safety, honestly, does, like a lot of these topics for this month with politics stuff, some of them could very well spawn their own month. Public safety is one that we've kind of poked at here and there. We've talked about gun laws, which is a bit more of a kind of that's a little bit, it's related, but it's a little different. But talking about public safety properly in terms of like where should resources go for stuff. I mean, we obviously talked a lot about that early on in our channel because that's kind of how we became a thing, was talking about some of the murders and the protests from police. But the general idea here is like public safety in terms of like physical safety, and kind of like what laws have people been passing, whether they're trying to loosen gun laws. That's a popular way of making things safer. Or some people are trying to restrict the gun laws so that it's, the age is restricted, or the conceal, or it's harder, the background checks. You're trying to close loopholes, and that doesn't fix everything, but you're trying to get at specific incidents and specific types of like red flag laws, of course, are a big one. So that's kind of really the main thing, is like physical safety. I don't know, like for reputation safety, is that kind of talking about like libel and like a libel, however you pronounce it, and like yeah, mental safety, that's a really big one too. Um that's I mean, you could talk about mental wellness, mental health. Um some of it is definitely intertwined. I mean, actually, the cyber safety is a really important one. There was a really tragic, I mean, thankfully the guy was alive, but I read this case that happened in freaking, I think it was Utah. There was a guy who was groomed by like an online predator. And they went on a vacation where he was basically abused. I mean, it's actually kind of crazy how that happens. This guy was 12, 13, I think he was 13. But like, there were multiple instances where like the parents were finding out what was going on. They talked to the police, they talked to Twitter. I mean, basically, like it was happening on Twitter, and they were trying to get this information to Twitter, like their safety department. And lo and behold, the guy like snuck out of the house, even though he was banned from using electronics. He found alternate ways, and then he snuck out to meet with this groomer, and they literally like went on a trip. Miraculously, was found and thankfully rescued. The guy was arrested. The groomer was arrested, right? And I mean that could have been a really really serious case. He could have been killed. Who even knows? So there definitely is cyber safety that needs to be taken more seriously with like trafficking, human trafficking. That's a topic we haven't gotten that deep into, but there is a lot of safety. And like I said, this could easily spawn more discussions in a later month. But the general idea is like physical safety with like what's happening with it's not is crime is a big part of it, but it's also like what's the perception of what laws are being made and like who are they being made for? What are the effects that can happen? Um, so yeah, that was a little bit of a tangent on how I explained it, but hopefully it makes sense. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Being too okay, that's interesting actually to talk about some of the behavioral aspects. I didn't even think about like because yeah, there is like the be careful when you're walking home at night. Have stuff on you like a taser or pepper spray, which I considered investing in a few years ago. Almost bought them on Amazon, but Amazon was restricting the purchase for whatever reason. It was like I was going to buy it, and it says we can't ship to this address. It was really strange, and then I never found the time to go to an actual in-person store. But your suggestions, yes, I don't even listen to headphones. I don't have headphones like that. Like I have some wireless ones, but I rarely use them. If I do, it's more maybe it's like later at night, or I'm trying to like multitask in my room, maybe move around, and I get a phone call, or if I'm in my car and I want to use the Bluetooth, but I don't want to connect to my car, I want to connect to the phone. So I can see people who have the audio with the headphones in, especially jogging. I was just thinking about that because even my old neighborhood, there were people who were active in Massachusetts for sure. But here, I've also noticed a lot of people are walking, and I'm like, it just got me thinking. And there was someone I know who just ran a marathon. They posted on Facebook or Instagram a few days ago. And I made a joke. I was like, I need to start with a 5K before I even think about a marathon. And I looked up, how do you train for these things? And I'm like, I haven't even looked at like jogging and like, I feel like I'm too paranoid now to like just go casually for a run in a neighborhood. But I'm like, yeah, jogging with their headphones and, or even just walking with headphones and, oh yeah, no, I lost that one. Ron, if you can highlight the last, not going to gas stations at night, I've lost very badly that one. I've literally gone to gas stations so late that they're closed, like past 11 p.m. often. I didn't even know gas stations could be closed. Like I thought you could go to a gas station at any hour, but there are some like Speedway, Mobile. There are a lot of that were like very like popular in my area. Oftentimes they were cheaper gas stations too. They were more convenient and they would be closed. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I would have to find some random other one, which often would be more expensive because it's like more available. Maybe it's closer to the highway. Yeah, I've thought of that too. Like I've gone to a gas station, I've had to like watch and be like, oh, this is really sketchy looking. And thankfully there was never like a problem. But like, yeesh, I've been to those gas stations too, where it's like you can only pay through like the little like thing that you slide, like a drawer almost, like you put it in. Kind of like when you're doing business with like a bank teller and you put the money in, or that you put the card in the stuff, they take it. Like I had never seen a gas station like that until the last few years, where literally it's only open on that little window. I don't know if it's bulletproof glass, but it didn't seem to be a COVID measure. So I'm assuming it's just a late night thing. They didn't want people inside. One neighbor in my complex, I try to learn as much as I humanly can. Okay, that's good. That's smart. It makes sense too. I mean, probably like you're married and you have like more people to think about than yourself. But for me, I'm just la di da di da, and I know my neighbors. Not, I mean, here definitely not. I just got here last week, but my last place, I mean, I knew one of my neighbors, and then there's some other neighbors, not really. In old apartments, I kind of met some, but I never got to know my neighbors for real. Maybe people in my complex, but they weren't even in the same building. These bigger complexes, it's difficult. But there were some people I did start to get to know, but it was never like I really thought like, man, let me know who's good and who's not, who's suspicious and who's not. But it's just crazy that even I take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Changing your routes. Yeah, I guess if people know you have a pattern, that is interesting. I haven't really thought of that. I mean, I know there are certain days, yes, with routine where, I would go out on the weekends, sure. And then there's like certain places to park. It's never the same exact spot. But I would kind of traditionally be leaving at a certain time, semi late, coming back usually after 2 a.m. And yeah, there's not usually a lot of other people. Sometimes I do notice there's other people in their cars, not just walking around. One time that I was a little freaked out, this was actually early in my complex, and I forgot this even happened, but I was walking and I see this guy. It looked like he's listening to music or recording music, like the shorter guy, long hair. I don't even know. And he was kind of like shouting and yelling something. So I was like, I thought he was just like rapping or just like saying like some songs. So I kind of am like, hey, but I was like, okay, this is weird. But it sounded like he was actually speaking in tongues, like very aggressively. Like I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and he was like, because I actually heard him repeating some scripture type thing, and he was like clapping loudly at times, like almost like he's slapping someone. And I was like, okay, we're gonna walk quickly to our car because I don't know what's happening. But that was like, I don't even know what time it was when I left, but I was like, nope, nope, nope. I mean, sorry, like I'm not trying to judge or diminish anyone, but I was like, please don't. Like there are things like we don't need to be having that. Like that is just kind of freaky. Like I don't know. Like I don't know if that's supposed to be comforting or blessing someone, but people are walking to and from the car, and it's just like I don't know what's happening right now. But yeah, like if people know that you are transit in these late hours, they could take advantage. And if there's not a lot of people to witness, you very well could get mugged or whatever. Thankfully, I've never been like there are times where it's like I think back and I'm like, yo, it's a good thing that this person decided that they weren't going to mug me because there were some very interesting incidents where I saw someone, maybe they stopped, maybe they're asking for dope, maybe they were asking if I had a lighter. I mean, a lot of times it's innocent, but there are times where there's not a lot of other people around. Maybe I'm carrying stuff, so I'm not in the best position to defend myself. I'm not going to go into that story right now, but I'll talk about the first time I ever traveled alone for an academic conference, and I was just like, ooh, this could have gone very badly. Too reliant on GPS. Yeah, I will say the GPS thing is interesting also that you mentioned, Rocky, because I have been like, I'll make sure it's not loud. Like I don't put the volume on, but I do often use the walk-in GPS. I don't activate it though. I'll like put it on and I'll follow it as it traces the steps out, but not like me actually hitting start. So it's a little less obvious maybe that I'm using the GPS actively, but I will still like look at it and try to like look at the steps, kind of get an idea of which street I'm going at, and try not to like stare at it like I'm a freaking tourist. Especially when I'm like walking, like I park in a neighborhood, it's late night, maybe you're going to someone's house, it's a party or whatever. Clearly, this is not like normal hours. I mean, even then you have to be careful, but I don't know. I guess I really have been taken for granted because there are definitely some things that I've like probably failed here in this thread just alone. So I'm gonna try to jump in your car real quick. Yeah, I've heard about the car thing. I always lock my car door like when I mean you have to unlock it for the fueling. Like you can't even like disengage the fuel, but I lock it when I even need to go to the like if I have to print the receipt, I always lock it, and I'm always very careful. I look back, I try to see if there was like anyone too nearby. So but yeah, people can come from anywhere, blitz you, blindside. Yeah, I like the regular homeless. I know the regular homeless my area stuff. That's interesting, Rocky. That you've actually talked. That's actually something I've seen almost again on these crime shows. Sometimes when like homeless people are the ones who are like the victims of a killer, oftentimes you'll see sometimes detectives or other people will have a relationship with people in the community, or like they'll however the plot is. It's very interesting that like you actually can know these people and they know things. They know when something is not right. They know when people are transient, but not to a certain degree where it's like there's something suspicious going on. And so that's an interesting point that like you actually have a real relationship with people who are homeless or transient. Buses, oh yeah, I've never taken, I want to say I've taken a public bus like once in Massachusetts to go from Cambridge to Waltham. I mean, that basically that takes you like on the highway. I did it once when I was an intern. It wasn't a problem with public safety. It was just very annoying to try to catch the right bus. So for me, it was more of just the inconvenience. And I haven't taken public transit in Boston since the pandemic, which means the only time I've taken public transit was going home to DC. Didn't use it this time because I drove in, right? But when I was flying, sometimes I just take the transit. And I know some people are big on that. They don't like to take the metros. I know New York City, of course, is nefarious. I mean, forget Jordan Neely. Like people have been talking about transit crime for a while. It's interesting though for you. The bus is kind of the problem, right? The bus is the one that you might see as a little more wild. I don't know. I mean, people can do any kind of crazy thing, and it's really unfortunate. Um, place to a friend. We took different ways from my place to a friend. Oh, Chad, yeah. I think I'm not even cognizant enough to know of like what those areas. Oh, actually, you know the funny, the area where I am, Gaithersburg. So if you know the rapper Logic, right? I mean, I assume most people probably know, but I didn't really know who he was until I'm trying to remember who it was that introduced me. But let's just say that like there was someone who knew because my roommate used to live in Gaithersburg, and I'm like, Gaithersburg is a nice area. It's like one of the nicer counties in Maryland, Montgomery. It's like Silver Spring, which is a very popular area, Rockville, Bethesda, Potomac, Real Housewives. So I'm like, Gaithersburg. I was like, he's talking about the hood. I was like, there is no hood in Gaithersburg. Apparently, not true. So you can kind of have those bad parts anywhere. So even though I think like, oh, there's no bad parts in this city, in this town, you know, even the towns that you don't think are really bad, people still are out here on shenanigans. Anything can happen. It is
Mhm.
kind of crazy. Typically, letters run north, south, numbers run east, west. Oh, interesting. Okay, that is actually interesting. Yeah, and of course, if you're in a grid area, Boston loves its roads that don't make sense and no sense of grid structure. But when you do have the grid structure, I do notice that there were some parallel streets that were numbers, 47, or I should say, I don't remember. I think it was like there was like Fifth Street, Fourth Street, Third Street, and they were like West Fifth Street, West whatever. Um, gender gapping situations. Yeah, and so I guess for sure, Gil, to get to that point, women are going to be more cognizant of these things, and so maybe that's also why I've been able to kind of like not worry about it as much. I mean, anything can happen. And when I was in grad school in Troy, New York, which was kind of like a little like up and coming town. It was Troy's. It's a town, but it has a little bit of a city feeling. Like it's a very small town, but it wasn't like the kind of town where it's like you have to drive everywhere. In fact, you can. It's very walkable. Driving's a bit annoying because of the one ways, and a lot of college students don't have cars anyways. So when I was there, I would walk in the downtown a lot. I would go out, but it would be a little bit like, maybe you see people who are like, probably asking for crack, but like even one guy, he went to my undergrad in Baltimore, and he was a grad student in a different department, so I had already known him, and so I talked to him for advice about stuff at the school, and he was like, "Yeah, honestly, I think just being black helps because when you're downtown, like I feel like I've never had a problem. Like other people have maybe mentioned certain things not feeling comfortable, but I feel like people leave you alone almost more." And I'm not saying like that's not advice, disclaimer. This is not like professional public safety advice, but in some cases, as terrible as it sounds, it's like, okay, well, even if I'm not the most threatening looking person, I have, glasses, I'm not necessarily coming off intimidating, but maybe it's just like, people leave you alone a little bit more.
Ah! Say it ain't so, sir. Say it ain't so.
Dead.
Say that's
Let's
lie.
the person, if I was getting asked for crack, it wasn't personal. It was just people who kind of weren't speaking very. I didn't even know what they were saying. 50 Cent, 50 Cent. Like they were saying something with a lisp and very like impaired speech. But one guy told me he was from New York City. He was also a grad student. I met him though at the school. Same year, different department. But he was telling me like because he went to like City College of New York, so he was used to being in the city, and he's from New York City, so he was like, "No, this is normal. Like this is." He was like, literally, they're asking for crack." And I was like, "What?" I was like, I felt so like, okay, that's problematic. I shouldn't say that. I was gonna say I felt so white. I was just like, I felt like I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, what? That man is asking for crack. I mean, I get it. There's the perception homeless people are asking money for drugs, but I just wouldn't have thought of it as my first thing. Like, I'm like, I don't even know what he's really saying, bro.
Mm. Yeah, you gotta be on your toes.
Yeah.
Definitely gotta be on your toes.
There was something. I mean, this is a good conversation. I have no problem like feeding off of this and like bouncing around ideas and things. But there was something I was gonna mention, like, um, I think when it came to, I I know I mentioned something about some laws at some point, but I think there was another direction that that was even about to go. If I remember, I will expound on it more. But I mean, I do know like one thing was that when it comes to like, I think when Uvalde happened, there actually was like, and we talked about gun stuff a few weeks ago, how carrying, I don't even know if it's the solution because people will almost see you as more suspicious, possibly if you had a gun, even if you're a licensed gun owner and everything.
Mhm.
But I know that like the Uvalde parents, they did push, and I guess there's a bill that just passed that is like a raise the age type of thing. So it's raising the age of like
Mhm.
gun owners. um, so I'll say raise the age law, Texas. Texas House advances bill to raise the age to buy assault weapons. So yeah, that actually happened. And I mean that Texas House a panel. So of course that means it's gonna advance to the main floor, which is still huge. Um and so there are different laws that I've seen like that one. Um of course you have Texas, which decided that they were going to make it easier for everyone to be able to carry guns to the detriment of even like the police who said this bill is not really good. um I know I'm trying to think of some other things that were pertinent to that, but I know like there's definitely like different people. Oh, I think one big thing. I mean, there's so many things. The gun one we've talked about, so I don't need to go too deep into it. But it's just interesting to see these shifts and these changes in real time. But one thing about public safety isn't just about the guns, because yes, guns are a thing, but not everyone uses guns. You have carjackings, you have other things that happen where there weren't guns involved. I actually heard that there was a
Mhm.
county in Maryland. I want to say it's PG County, Prince George's. This is like where a lot of the black people. It's like the suburbs, the black suburbs. It's very, kind of like a well-to-do majority black county. At one point, it was actually the richest majority black county in the country. Not necessarily the richest black people. Like you can find rich black people maybe in Long Island and Florida. We love to talk about the villages or wherever, but like in terms of a majority black county, to see like $120,000 medium net worths and housing prices that are out the roof, um, it was pretty cool. And so PG County, there was I believe there was what do you call those things when you lock people in their house? There was a curfew. There was a curfew for people who
Mhm.
were like 16 years and older or younger. Let me look this up real quick. Um it was in October of last year. So there was a juvenile curfew enforcement that happened, and it is extended to the end of the year. So people who are, oh, for the love of God, it's making, okay, this is a paywall for um this is a current,
Mhm.
this is a paywall for Washington Post. Um yeah, so someone said
Of
like these
course.
kids don't need just a hug. So it was basically saying there was a lot of carjacking and other violent crime. So I think the curfew was saying um goodness, people on teens under 17 had to be off the streets between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then between 11:59 p.m. and 5 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. I didn't know about this actually, in terms of the exact times. Um, so it's interesting that that happened, and it's like, is that a violation? And I mean, whoever did this, I mean, I'm sure that they were probably black. PG County, I mean, you're going to see black people everywhere, commissioners, delegates. And but someone did say the point, it's not a popular thing to say, but it's a fair question. Where are their parents? Where are the aunties? Where are the uncles and other family members who are responsible for them? So, you know, I don't know how widespread that type of thing is. I don't know how many curfews happen. I don't know if that's the way people are trying to. And even DC had like this crime bill that kind of like was controversial earlier this year. And the apparently Biden and some national Democrats got involved because they actually had to say, just because of the way DC operates, they were able to co-sign or veto. It was kind of strange. But it's interesting because it's like, is that the solution? Like just to say, and I mean, other people commit crimes, obviously adults commit crimes. Um, but is that by on principle an okay thing to have a curfew? And then does it even make sense to have those parameters? Um, And pull on someone who was threatening me. I'm just catching up. Was that in PG or over in Baltimore? Oh no, that was definitely PG. That was PG because I know that was in one of the counties, and I was like, I had to be PG County. I don't see that being Montgomery or Howard, because I know DC has unfortunately gotten a pretty bad light. Like, there was another incident where someone got shot. It was like a 13-year-old who was shot and killed by a homeowner because he was, I guess, he was with two older teens who were carjacking, and he ended up getting shot. The other two must have ran away or drove away, but he got shot and killed. The homeowner, it's not even clear if he owned the car, and so that was a pretty fierce debate of like not defending that the guy got, caught carjacking, but he wasn't directly interacting with someone. He wasn't robbing someone. Someone came out of their house at like 4 a.m. because they heard the carjacking, and then they went ahead and shot again, people's opinions on these things are just, I think, very warped. I mean, people can have their opinions, and I'm not defending that situation. It's sad. It's sad that the kid fell into that at 4 a.m., 13, but like that shouldn't have had to happen. And then the question is like, is because that incident actually happened, I'm pretty sure, after the curfew, because that was pretty recent. That had to have happened earlier this year. And so it's like, how do you treat these things, right? Because there have been some pretty viral incidents involving carjacking, and it's not just carjackings. Thankfully, I've never been carjacked, and I have a Hyundai. I shouldn't really publicize this, but Hyundai's apparently on TikTok. Kia is really the big one because Kia boys. Oh my god! Sorry, this is my ADHD, but Eric Adams literally made a video like a few days ago about like kids on TikTok learning how to carjack, and they're going to the bodega to buy fentanyl or sell fentanyl, which is not happening. That's not happening in New York City, just to be clear. But he was going on and saying very like things that you would not expect necessarily from some. I mean, maybe you do expect that from him, but yeah, it was kind of a bit of a yikes. But like, it is somewhat true. People have learned how to jack cars. Like Kia was a big one. Hyundai, I think some newer Hyundais are not as bad. But yeah, I didn't have a choice. I needed a cheaper car that was also good and had good technology features. I was warned by a good friend of mine. She was like, there are people on TikTok stealing these cars. And I was like, listen, your boy needs a car. Your boy needs a car. So wait, Rocky, what happened outside New Orleans? That like someone shot a kid who was carjacking? Or that, yeah, I'm assuming that's most likely it, because I've heard about the Cadillac converters. I saw an article about that. There was a ring of people, I think, in Massachusetts who got arrested for doing that. A theft ring. Yep. I mean, shoot. Maybe anyway, I don't need to steal, but Lord, things are lucrative that are just like, why is this so lucrative, and how can I get my hands not on someone's car who needs it, but like, I don't know, you're just tinkering with a car, or you have a car in a junkyard. Let me get that Cadillac converter. I was talking with a friend. She was like, a friend of mine who went to grad school, or she was an undergrad, but anyway, she's based here around here, and I was catching up with her like just by text. And she was like, I could see why on a small scale, I see why the greedy end up being so, rich people are so greedy, because like it is expensive in the DC area. And I was like, yep. I was like, I could see why Sam Bankman-Fried, I was like, he did nothing wrong. He did not do nothing wrong. He did many things wrong. But I'm like, shoot, can you pass me some of that Alameda FTX money? Because it is difficult out here. Not promoting the life of crime, by the way, but okay. Three teens tried to jack a guy in his driveway. Jesus. He made it to the hospital. Oh, snap. Okay. So a few of them were like seriously injured. No, I didn't hear about that at all, actually. Especially in the news of all of these like other incidents happening where they were like wrong, sort of like not mistaken identity, but just like overreactions, not even vigilante, but people wanted to like take matters into their own hands type thing. So I didn't even hear about this case. Struggles. It is like, oh my god. Actually, I'm gonna look it up because maybe I did hear. I heard New Orleans something, but I don't think I heard that. Oh, it was Angela Alsobrooks. So Angela Alsobrooks just entered the Maryland Senate race because Ben Cardin, who's a longtime senator, is pretty old. He announced he's not going to run for the seat for next year. And Maryland is very safe, very, very safe. But I guess it doesn't open up very often because it's very much like a wait your turn type of state. Apparently, the people who have served each served like 20 something years. Like these people have served for a long time. And there's not really competitive primaries. And so I heard Angela Alsobrooks mentioned some days ago that she was a possible contestant. She was a possible candidate. And then I saw an article like yesterday that said she's running. And this article about the Prince George's crime, she's apparently the county executive. So I don't know. That might be interesting to see how people will view her encouraging curfews. And I'm pretty sure she's a Black woman, right? So, I mean, she kind of can have her experience of, I'm sure she has kids. I'm sure she knows people. She's compassionate, but at the same time, enough is enough. So I just like had a moment of like, wow, that was her. I didn't realize this was the person in charge of the curfews. Life of crime makes more sense to some people. Yeah, that's definitely true.
I agree. I agree.
With nothing changing. And what you said, Rocky, makes sense. I kind of am interested in hearing more about that. Like parts of the country get overlooked. If you mean like some of those like small towns, the areas that kind of got decimated by like whether you're talking about automation or like a lot of the trade deals, opioid crisis, or even like some of the inner cities where you don't really hear about the crime outside of political points that people love. And that's another conversation. That is a separate, because this is a little bit more of like honestly, it's a little bit of everything, but the conversation around crime rates is very, very much reserved for another day, because I've been wanting to do something like that for a while. And we've all like expressed interest in talking about this red state, blue state nonsense, cities versus rural, suburban crime. But I definitely think like there are so many parts of the country that have had problems and have fallen into disarray. And you're right, Rocky, that they don't always get the attention. Drive stats shoot through the roof in places where the rate of employment drops. Crime stats, yeah. And the thing is, Wes Moore, the new governor of Maryland, he actually won endorsement from the police, right? Which is pretty big because that doesn't always happen for the Democrat. But I think in a case like that, where clearly the power is with the Democrat Party in the state, it kind of makes more sense. And so Wes Moore made a big case of how public safety starts with healthy communities. Like you need to have a good environment for education, poverty. Because he was the CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation, which I only knew vaguely of, even as a Maryland native. But he was the CEO of this. He had no political experience, and now he's the governor. So he won an endorsement when he became the Democratic nominee from the police, because he knows what he's talking about. When you have standards of living go to crap, crime goes way up. It's just like, it's not really rocket science, but there are people who have been able to make the case. Josh Shapiro, the new governor of Pennsylvania, of course. He also, he was the attorney general, so he made a pretty tough on crime case, but not necessarily in the Republican way, like prosecuting some of these like, high level crimes like trafficking and drugs, but then also being able to talk again about poverty. I'm sure I didn't listen to all of his like campaigning per se, but like I feel like it would be a pretty common, obvious case to talk about what happens when standard of living isn't great. crime is going to go up. I was the attorney general and I dealt with that. Like there's like some pretty common threads that can happen. So some politicians get it. Those who don't. Those who get it, get it. Um, but no, in seriousness, like that's a pretty good point as well. And it would be wonderful if you saw more like people on all sides of the spectrum looking at those living conditions, the employment rates, and looking at how that correlates. I mean, we already know Yang was on top of this with like chaos and like riots in the streets. I mean, riots happen for different reasons, but like, when you have these like districts where the automation just went like that to the jobs, you already know that there's going to be a lot of disarray. A lot of it was the victimless crimes where it was opioids and suicides, but like you also are going to see these other crimes as well. Now I will say there's one little pushback because I remember hearing about. I have to be careful here. I have to be careful here. So I was hearing about Chicago, right? You have to be careful when you mention Chicago. But what I was hearing, and this is Facebook comments years ago, where it was saying this was around the time where Trump decided to make his wonderful claim or wonderful policy of like, let's get the National Guard of all things to like militarize the city until they can figure out the crime problem, which no. But there were some people who were commenting, even like black people who seem more liberal, black women who like would have had more liberal beliefs, but they were kind of saying that like even here the community colleges were made free. I don't know if that was a citywide policy, but there must have been some push to make community college free, create more opportunity for the youths. And apparently a lot of people just weren't going. Which I mean, I would argue because something's broken way earlier, you're not going to magic your way into community college if you're already getting to the point where you can barely finish high school and you have other structural problems way up the pipeline. But I know some people might say that even in some areas where you are pushing people to have opportunities, you're still dealing with a lot of crime and you're dealing with people who are going into the other way of life, which again, Gil said, crime makes more sense to some people. So there's no easy answer to it, but I do think it's a conversation I honestly want to get more into because I feel like crime just gets so easily thrown as like political headlines and points, but I would love to really study it deeper. And going back to Yugo, that is really unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear about your instance. Whoa. Dang. So okay, this wasn't even just like a random kind of like someone tried to act as if they wanted your help or to be mentored. Now that's really messed up. Yeah, that's not okay at all. It'd be cheaper to give people's jobs. Yeah. I mean, hey, even the federal guaranteed jobs, federal job guarantee. I know there was a bit of like a back and forth between UBI and the federal jobs, but I think there's definitely a place for jobs programs. Maybe Yang said that. He had some during the pandemic, he was like, there's going to need to be a federal job program for probably healthcare and certain industries that are way too strained, certain essential workers. So I think like, yeah, like there's easily places where jobs, well-paying jobs with livable wages could be implemented. Again, I'm not an expert in these domains, but locking people up costs a lot of money. Let's just say that. Giving people money and giving people jobs is cheaper by many factors than locking them up or putting them into like emergency room healthcare and all these other type of conditions. The pockets are found on both ends of the spectrum, unemployment and employment. Yeah, I mean, politicians might be purposefully looking the other way. I mean, I'm not saying that. Okay, so I'm not like saying that it might as in to disagree with you. I'm just trying to think of specific examples where people will benefit from it. It could be kind of like many of these policies where people purposely don't solve them because they know it's a hot issue, which is really sucks because you're playing with people's lives. But nah. I'm just trying to see what else I'm seeing here in the chat.
Hey.
Uh-oh. I hear you on a little bit of the metallic, that they are hot issues. So what you set up there, it's not just that they are hot issues. I mean, I'm guessing you kind of getting to the point that it's deeper than just like something that's hot in the moment and politically, I don't know, politically salient. Like these, of course, are much more. They are very, very like real lives and everything. But unfortunately, the way the news and the media are. Okay, I see the rest of your comment here. There are issues that, if left alone, create an environment where the rich and wealthy stay that way.
Okay,
Sounds like
I'm
bars.
back.
It sounds like bars. It's cheaper to prevent a problem in the first place than it is to fix it. Yeah, and usually I think of that with natural disasters. That's usually exactly my thought: is why are we not taking care of when we know that there's going to be more increased disasters, or we know that like hotter temperatures are going to cause more structural damage, right? There's literally like materials of houses that are melting, or some certain construction materials I was hearing about, like the Pacific South Northeast, and then like I'm sure proper California as well. Like a lot of areas were just like, oh, of course you had like Oregon, Utah, just places that were quite literally on fire, and materials were like, oh, we're not supposed to handle this level of heat. And so if you don't invest in the way of like, even if you're not going to talk about climate accords, it's a little bit of a side tangent, but even if you're not talking about sending money and you don't trust, I don't know, this nations, you don't, if you, there's a whole lot of nonsense people say to talk about why you shouldn't invest in climate. But like, even if you don't think any of that, invest in your freaking selves. Like, we need help. People need help. Areas are flooding that should not be flooding as frequently. Temperatures are warming and killing off like fish and shrimp that are destroying businesses. And so, like, you have to be able to invest in certain problems before the fact, right? So even if you're in this some dumb gridlock and some dumb, you can't get anything done, you can't even agree what the problem is. Like, oh, again, I guess that's the problem, is you can't agree what the problem is. So then I guess that answers that question. Um, but yeah, like investing in something beforehand when you kind of realize that there is a problem, you have to do that. Or otherwise, have fun playing cleanup for like 10,000. No, not 10,000. Have fun playing cleanup for like 1 billion, Alex. Um, there you go. Okay, we see you. We see you. Um, it's great. I love to hear that. I really think you guys the answer, because I know people have different opinions. Not everyone came here necessarily from the Yang Gang or whatever. So we kind of are like, we have our own widespread of opinions. But I do think a lot of people are coming around to the idea of cash transfers more directly. Much like UBI is, of course, a big, big goal. But even trying to get to like some level of guaranteed minimum income, like the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was proposing, right? He talked about it, other people talked about it. And so it's really cool to see more people mentioning UBI. And now, I mean, COVID people mentioned the stimulus checks. Artificial intelligence and automation weren't talked about as much. It was more of like well, things are going to go more remote. And if people can take humans out the loop, they will, because humans get sick, which is really crappy, but that is how businesses think. But now that Chat GPT and you have other companies developing their AI, it is much, much more obvious that AI is really a serious thing. I think there was a video. It was like the Godfather of AI said. I didn't watch it, but I saw the headline. The Godfather of AI said to shut it down. A lot of experts in AI were saying to shut down, like Microsoft. Like there was a whole lot of stuff. Um, yes, and Rocky, what you're saying here is good too. Let me check this. Yeah, so being like a kind of shareholder of our nations, because what you call your representatives, email them. I mean, there are all these things that you can quote unquote do to hold them accountable. But we know what incumbency does. We know like what 94% of districts are not competitive. So it's kind of difficult. But it would be nice if you could kind of have a real system that has that kind of shareholder effect, right? Because what you're saying is very spot on. That's literally what you have to do. We need to have accountability for the people who actually are in their job. And I mean, this is not me pitching the forward party, but I do love the stats that like most people do not like the parties. It's like a horrific, like the rate of Congress at one point was in the 20s. This was years ago, even before Trump, or maybe shortly during. But the fact that like the approval rating gets worse and worse, the dissatisfaction rate gets worse and worse, and yet 94%. I mean, companies, that's not normal. Like companies are, people are going to get fired, heads will roll when you see this kind of split, when you see this kind of like customer satisfaction rate, and yet nothing happens. And so I don't know, like there's many like ways that are talked about. Not everyone can agree on one way, but there has to be a way of very directly actually holding someone accountable. That's like not violence. That is, I mean, you have town halls, sure, you have all these things can go viral, but at the end of the day, what happens? And so, very, very important question: how to actually hold the elected officials to the same standard. I mean, there was a good point when this protest happened for George Floyd, right? That was massive. I mean, protests like that in general had not been seen in the country in a very long time. Like, forget Occupy Wall Street, forget some of these things. That was, I mean, the not taken away from the Women's March, not taken away from some of the anti-Trump things, but that was huge. Like, that was actually one of the largest movements in the modern history. And so, you know, not to diminish any of that, but some people were like, how do you get that same energy and that same intensity for some of these other problems that are like also ruining our lives? Like when you talk about, corporate influence or like things where clearly like the society decays, things get worse in society, and yet there's no backlash to the elected officials. There's no backlash really to anybody. It just seems like people get richer, but not just like companies, but even DC and politicians. No, everyone gets richer. It's like, what's happening here? And other places in the country are not. And how do you actually fix that disparity? Yeah, political infrastructure, Chad, is really the problem. And so, how do you kind of get that kind of massive energy? And I'm not like diminishing at all, because it was really important what was happening, not just for George Floyd, but for Breonna Taylor, for Elijah McClain, for many people. But that really did force some change. I mean, it was short term though. Even in the moment, it seemed like change was being forced. But in reality, it kind of, now that I'm thinking about it, even that didn't really get the change that was really, really needed permanently. But there were some big changes that were happening at the very immediate. A lot of companies, a lot of people were really like trying to scramble to figure out what can we do. Like, you don't see that energy in a lot of these other cases. Poverty, it's fine. Cutting food stamps, all good. Just a lot of things that unfortunately don't seem. And I mean, I'm kind of sounding very cynical. I'm sure there are people who are doing some serious things, but a lot of it has to be outside of the legislation. Mm-hmm. So people doing their own little Robin Hood type thing. You gotta love the medical fundraising, GoFundMe being used as insurance. So there's a lot of systemic problems. Like, this is kind of very obvious, but it's like, it's kind of nice just to be able to talk about this, because I feel like getting back to these roots, this is kind of actually kind of, it's a little invigorating, I will admit, Ron, and everyone.
Oh yeah.
Getting back to these roots, like, not, even though it's so depressing and I really would rather not be involved in politics, it kind of reminds me though, there really was an important reason why we went so hard in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. And even then, it just goes to show that we still got a lot of work to do. But with that being said, and as much as we would love to continue to hang out and chill and all this other good stuff, we still got to go. We still got to get some sleep, and we still got to get some rest and prepare for the next day.
Yes,
And shout out to our homegirl Elle. She couldn't make it, but she is loved. She is missed. She shall be loved and missed. Please, 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 if you guys have not checked out the Agreeable Gray Area podcast, please go check that out. Show her some love, show her some support, and just keep those notifications going and up because she's supposed to be dropping another podcast. When, I have no idea, but she's supposed to be dropping one. So again, please stay tuned for that. The conversations is always, always needed, always on point. And again, like Toby said, we're slowly going back to our roots and talking about politics and talking about a lot of things that are needing change and trying to be that driving force all over again. But yes, please, if anything, I get it. Yeah, that's like here in Michigan too. Well, Three Rivers, I should say. It's
Where's the
yeah, that's another topic for another time. But again, we got to go. We got to go.
Mhm.
Be sure to check us out on our Discord where we will carry the conversations over there. If you have an idea or something that we should talk about, again, drop that in the Discord section under the ideas and feedback section.
Yes.
And again, just have fun, chill out, hang out, and yes, good night. Bye. Kim, thank you for stopping by. It was good to see you. And
Yes.
for Rocky and Chad and Gil, again, thank you guys for stopping in. And Mama Tamagos, if you're in here,
Oh.
if you're in here, Mama Tamagos over on Twitch. If you are in here, see you later. It was good. Even though, yes, you may have been hiding in the shadows, we don't care. It's always good to see you as well. Always good to see you as well. So, without further ado, we are going to call it a night.
Yes.
Catch us next week.
I will.
Same. Go ahead, Toby.
I was just gonna say I need to link a few people off to the side. Chad, it's funny because I don't have you besides like maybe Twitter. We should actually like connect. One, I'm in the Mid Atlantic, but two, I want to hear more about this Philly politics stuff. So even inside of Discord, we can chat because I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on Helen. And for Gil, I respect that you didn't tell me about your sister, but but if you're gonna be there the weekend of the 18th, it might be cool to actually run into each other for real. So we should actually link on the side because I'm gonna definitely be in Boston probably Wednesday or Thursday of next week up until Sunday. So that is so funny. But I had to say something before we closed off.
There
Um,
you go.
keep going, Ron. Though we out
There
here.
you go. All right. We're out of here till next week. So same time, same channel, same trio. You never know. We may bring a guest or two, but always stay tuned. All right. Yes, drop some Philly news in the Discord. Yes, 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 yes. So you guys do that, please, 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 and have a good night.